Marcus Chen woke up screaming. The cold hit him first. It was the kind of cold that went straight through skin and muscle and settled deep into the bones. His body shook so hard that his teeth made clicking sounds against each other. His eyes opened but saw nothing except blinding white light that stabbed into his brain like needles. Something was very wrong. The last thing he remembered was climbing into the cryopod on the UNSC Meridian. He remembered the gentle hiss of the sleep gas. He remembered the medical officer smiling and saying she would see him in 18 months. He remembered closing his eyes and thinking about the new colony on Kepler 442b, about the fresh start waiting for him there. Now he was lying on a floor that was too smooth and too cold. The air tasted wrong. It had a metal taste, like licking a coin, but also something else. Something that made his stomach turn. Marcus forced himself to move. His muscles screamed in protest. Cryosleep always left you weak and confused for a few hours, but this was different. This felt like he had been asleep for much longer than planned. His arms and legs felt like they belonged to someone else. He pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. The floor beneath him was black and shiny like glass. It reflected his face back at him, and he did not like what he saw. His skin was pale. His lips were blue. His eyes looked scared. Then he noticed he was naked. This was normal for cryosleep. The medical teams had explained that clothing caused problems with blood flow during long periods of frozen sleep. Everyone went into the pods wearing nothing. But everyone was supposed to wake up in a warm recovery room with doctors and heated blankets and hot drinks. Not here. Not wherever this was. Marcus finally looked up from the floor, and his heart stopped. The room around him was wrong in ways his brain could not understand. The walls curved in directions that should not exist. They bent and twisted like a painting made by someone who had never seen a real building. The light came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. There were no lamps, no windows, no sources that he could see. The room simply glowed, and he was not alone. They stood in a circle around him. Dozens of them. Creatures that looked like someone had tried to build an insect the size of a human, but had made many mistakes along the way. Their bodies were covered in something that looked like crystal or glass. It caught the strange light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. They had too many arms. Some had 4, some had 6, and one in the back seemed to have 8. Their heads were shaped like triangles with the point facing down. And their eyes. Marcus felt his stomach drop when he saw their eyes. Each creature had 2 large eyes that were made of hundreds of smaller parts, like the eyes of a fly seen under a microscope. Every tiny part of every eye was pointed directly at him. He saw himself reflected in those eyes. Hundreds and hundreds of tiny Marcuses, all naked and shivering and alone. For a long moment, nobody moved. The creatures seemed frozen in place, their many arms held at strange angles. Marcus could hear a sound coming from them, a high-pitched humming that seemed to come from their chests. He did not know if it was breathing or talking or something else entirely. Then one of the creatures took a step toward him. It was larger than the others. Its crystal shell was darker, almost black, and it moved with a purpose that the others did not have. In one of its forearms, it held something that looked like a metal stick with a glowing tip. Every instinct in Marcus's body screamed at him to run. But run where? He did not know where the door was. He did not even know if there was a door. The room seemed to go on forever in every direction, the walls bending away from him like a nightmare. The creature with the stick came closer. Its eyes never blinked. Its humming grew louder. Marcus had been a soldier before he became a colonist. 15 years in the United Nations Space Corps. He had fought in 3 wars and walked away from all of them. He had been shot twice, stabbed once, and survived a ship explosion that killed everyone else in his unit. He was naked. He was weak. He was alone on what was clearly not a human ship, but he was not dead yet. When the creature raised its stick to point at him, Marcus moved. His body remembered things that his tired mind had forgotten. He rolled to the side just as a beam of blue light shot from the stick and hit the floor where he had been. The floor sizzled and smoked. Whatever that stick did, it was not friendly. Marcus came up from his roll and charged straight at the creature. It made a sound like breaking glass and tried to swing the stick toward him, but it was too slow. Much too slow. He hit the creature low, wrapping his arms around its legs and driving forward with all his strength. The thing went down hard. Its crystal shell cracked against the floor with a sound like a window breaking. The stick flew from its grip and slid across the smooth surface. Marcus did not think. He just acted. His hand closed around the stick. It was cold and vibrated gently against his palm. He pointed it at the creature on the floor and hoped that it worked the same way for him as it had for them. The other creatures had not moved. They stood in their circle, watching with those terrible compound eyes. The humming sound had stopped. The room was completely silent. Marcus stood over the fallen creature, weapon in hand, his bare chest rising and falling as he tried to catch his breath. He was still cold. He was still confused. He still had no idea where he was or how he had gotten here. But now he had a weapon. And somewhere in this impossible ship, there had to be answers. He looked at the creatures surrounding him. They still did not move. He could not read their faces because they did not have faces in any way he understood. But something in the way they held their bodies told him they were afraid. Good, Marcus thought. They should be afraid, because he was Marcus Chen. He had survived 3 wars and a ship explosion and 15 years of fighting across the stars. And he was not going to die naked on some alien floor just because these things thought they could collect him like a bug in a jar. He was going to find out what was happening. He was going to find a way home. And if anyone tried to stop him, they were going to learn that humans were not the kind of creature you could put in a cage. Not ever. Senior cataloger Zixjin had worked on the research vessel for 200 years. In that time, she had seen many strange things. She had watched stars die and new ones be born. She had traveled to corners of the galaxy that no other Valkyrie had ever seen. She had cataloged over 3,000 different species from 100 different worlds, but she had never seen anything like this. The creature stood in the middle of the specimen chamber, holding Security Chief Krathful's neural lance, like it had been born with the weapon in its hand. It was small compared to the Valkyrie. Its skin was soft and pink, without any shell or armor to protect it. It had only 2 arms and 2 legs, which seemed like a terrible design for any living thing. Its eyes were tiny and faced forward like a predator's eyes, and they moved constantly, looking at everything and everyone in the room. It should have been dead. The preservation fields were designed to keep specimens in a state of deep sleep forever. The fields worked on the neural system, shutting down all conscious thought while keeping the body alive. They had been used for 3 centuries without a single failure. Until now, Zixjin watched the creature from her position near the wall. Her compound eyes could see many things at once, and she used this ability to study every detail of the being before her. It was shivering. Its skin had small bumps all over it from the cold. Water dripped from its body onto the floor. These were signs of weakness, of a creature not adapted to survive. And yet Krathvalum lay on the ground. His shell cracked in 3 places, unable to move. The creature made sounds with its mouth. They were rough sounds, harsh and short. Zixjin had heard many languages in her long life, and she recognized that these sounds had meaning. The creature was trying to communicate, but no one in the room could understand it. And the translation systems needed time to analyze a new language. So they all simply stood there, the Valkyrie and the creature. Watching each other across the strange silence of the specimen chamber, Zixtian thought about what she knew of this species. They had been collected from a small blue planet in the outer spiral arm. The initial survey had been done 12,000 years ago by a cataloging team that no longer existed. The report had been short and unimpressive. The species lived in caves. They made tools from stone and bone. They wore animal skins for warmth. They had not yet discovered metal or writing or any of the things that marked a species as truly intelligent. The report had classified them as pre-sapient curiosity, with limited evolutionary potential. Looking at the creature now, Zixtian wondered if that report had been wrong. The door to the chamber opened, and more security officers entered. They were armed with stronger weapons than the neural lance. Plasma rifles that could burn through metal. Gravity nets that could pin a creature to the floor and crush it with its own weight. Zixtian raised one of her arms in the gesture that meant stop. The officers hesitated. "Do not approach," she said in the Velkari language. "Look at what it did to Krathvalum. It moves faster than our eyes can track." The lead officer made a sound of disbelief. "It is a primitive life form. It does not even have a shell. One shot from a plasma rifle will end it. Then why is Krathvalum on the floor?" The officer had no answer for this. The creature watched them talk. Its eyes moved from one Velkari to another, and Zixtian had the uncomfortable feeling that it was learning, studying, figuring things out. Even though it could not understand their words, this was what predators did. They watched and waited and learned the patterns of their prey. But the Velkari were not prey. They had traveled the stars for 10,000 years. They had technology that this creature's species could not even dream of. They were the collectors, the catalogers, the keepers of all life in the galaxy, weren't they? The creature took a step forward, and every Velkari in the room took a step back. Zixtian felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Her ancestral memory called it fear, but that was a word from a time when the Velkari had been young and weak, before they had risen to dominate their world. They were supposed to be beyond fear now, and yet her body remembered. Deep in her cells, in the parts of her that came from ancestors millions of years dead, something screamed at her to run. The creature made more sounds. This time, they were softer, and it held up its free hand with the palm facing forward. The neural lance in its other hand pointed at the floor instead of at them. Was it trying to show peace? Was it trying to surrender? No, Zixtian did not think so. She had cataloged predators before. She knew how they thought. This creature was not surrendering. It was testing, seeing how they would react, looking for weakness. Behind her, she heard the sound of the lead security officer raising his plasma rifle. "No," Zixtian said. "We need to study it. We need to understand how it broke free from the preservation field. If we kill it, we learn nothing. It attacked Krathvalum. It must be punished. It defended itself. There's a difference." The officer made a gesture of disgust, but he lowered his weapon. For now, Zixtian stepped forward, putting herself between the security team and the creature. It watched her come closer, its strange eyes never blinking. She could see now that its eyes were not solid like hers. They had a colored circle in the middle that grew larger and smaller as the light changed. Such a strange design. She raised her arm slowly and pointed at herself. "Zixtian," she said, speaking her name clearly. The creature tilted its head to one side. It made a short sound that might have been surprise. Then it pointed at itself. "Marcus," it said. Zixtian felt a chill run through her body that had nothing to do with the temperature. The creature had understood. It had learned. In just a few seconds, it had figured out what she was trying to do and had responded in kind. This was not a pre-sapient animal. This was an intelligent being, and they had been collecting its kind, like insects, for 12,000 years. Zixchen suddenly understood why the creature was so angry. She understood why it had attacked Krathvalum. She understood that everything they thought they knew about this species was wrong. And she understood, with a growing sense of horror, that the Valkyrie had made a terrible mistake. Marcus had been in bad situations before. He had fought in the mining wars on Mars when he was 22 years old. He had survived the Battle of Titan Station when his entire unit was killed around him. He had once spent 3 weeks alone in a broken escape pod, floating through empty space with nothing but emergency rations and his own thoughts to keep him company. But this was different. This was worse that the aliens had let him go after the one called Zixchen had exchanged names with him. They had not attacked, but they had not helped either. They had simply stepped back and watched as Marcus walked out of the specimen chamber and into the ship beyond. The ship was a maze. The corridors twisted and turned in ways that made no sense. Doors appeared in walls where there should not be doors. Stairs went up but somehow ended lower than where they started. The whole place seemed designed to confuse anyone who was not born here. But Marcus had one advantage. He was a hunter, and hunters learned to track. He found patterns in the madness. The aliens followed certain paths more than others. Their strange feet left marks on the polished floors. Certain corridors had more light than others, which meant they were more important. Slowly, step by step, he began to map the ship in his mind. He also began to collect things. The first item was a piece of cloth he found in his storage room. It was not made for human bodies, but he wrapped it around his waist anyway. Being naked made him feel weak. Covering himself, even a little, made him feel stronger. The second item was food. He found what looked like a kitchen and took several containers of something that smelled like rotting fruit. He did not know if he could eat it, but he was too hungry to care. He tried a small bite. It tasted terrible, but his stomach did not reject it, so he ate more. The third item was a better weapon. The neural lens was useful, but he did not really understand how it worked. In another storage room, he found tools. Cutting tools, welding tools, things that looked like drills and hammers. He took a long metal bar that felt good in his hands. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Hours passed. Marcus moved through the ship like a ghost. He avoided the aliens when he could. When he could not avoid them, he hid in the shadows until they passed. They did not seem to expect him to be in certain areas. Their security was designed for creatures that stayed where they were put. Marcus was not that kind of creature. He found other specimen chambers along the way. Some held creatures that looked like floating jellyfish. Some held things with too many teeth and not enough eyes. Some held beings that might have been intelligent like him, frozen in preservation fields, just as he had been. Marcus wanted to free them. He wanted to wake them all up and start a rebellion on this ship. But he did not know how. The controls were written in symbols he did not understand. And even if he could free them, he did not know if they would help him or attack him or simply die from the shock of waking up. So he left them. He promised himself he would come back if he could. But first, he needed to find the command center. He needed to find who was in charge. The hunt took him deeper into the ship. The corridors became wider. The lights became brighter. He saw more aliens here, and they moved with purpose. This was the important part of the ship. This was where decisions were made. Marcus found a ventilation shaft large enough for his body and climbed inside. The metal was cold against his skin, but he was used to the cold now. He crawled through the darkness, following the sounds of alien voices below. He found the command center through a grate in the ceiling. Looking down, he saw a large room filled with screens and controls. A dozen aliens worked at different stations, their many arms moving across surfaces that glowed with strange light. In the center of the room, on a raised platform, stood the largest alien he had seen yet. This one was old. Marcus could tell by the way its shell had faded from bright crystal to dull gray. It moved slowly and carefully, like someone who had learned that rushing led to mistakes. When it spoke, the other aliens stopped what they were doing and listened. This was the leader. This was the one Marcus needed. He waited in the ventilation shaft for 3 more hours. He watched the aliens work. He learned their patterns. He noticed that they had a shift change every few hours, and that during the change, there were fewer guards in the room. When the next shift change came, Marcus kicked out the grate and dropped from the ceiling. He landed on one of the workstations, crushing screens and controls under his feet. Before any alien could react, he jumped down and ran straight for the raised platform. The old alien did not move. It watched him come with eyes that showed no fear. Guards tried to stop him. Marcus swung his metal bar and broke shells. He dodged beams of light and streams of some kind of sticky web. He moved between the aliens like water flowing through rocks, never stopping, never slowing down. Within 30 seconds, he was on the platform. His metal bar was pressed against the old alien's neck. Every other alien in the room had frozen. Marcus was breathing hard. His body hurt in a dozen places. Blood dripped from a cut on his arm where something had scratched him, but he had won. The old alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then it spoke, and Marcus felt his entire world shift. "You speak," he said. "You speak my language." "I speak now," the alien replied. Its voice was strange, like metal scraping against metal, but the words were clear. "Your language is in our databases. We have been listening to your world for a very long time." Marcus kept the bar at its neck, but his mind was racing. They knew about Earth. They had been listening to human radio signals, human television, human internet. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Why did you take me?" "I am Velthani, shipmaster of this vessel. And we took you because that is what we do. We collect specimens from across the galaxy. We preserve them. We study them. I am not a specimen. I am a person." Velthani's eyes shifted in a way that Marcus was starting to recognize as interest. "Yes," she said slowly. "I am beginning to understand that now. But you must understand, when we first visited your world, your kind was living in caves. You were not people then. You were animals." Marcus felt cold anger building in his chest. "When did you visit Earth?" 12,000 of your years ago. 12,000 years. When humans were still figuring out how to plant crops and build villages. When they were barely surviving against ice and predators and their own ignorance. And these aliens had looked at them and seen nothing worth respecting. "Things have changed," Marcus said. "So I see," Velthani replied. And for the first time, Marcus heard something like respect in her voice. "You escaped our preservation fields. You defeated our security. You found your way to my command center with no weapons, no clothing, and no knowledge of our ship. In my 300 years of life, no species has ever done this." She paused. "Your kind has changed indeed." The days that followed were strange for everyone on the ship. Marcus lowered his weapon after Velthani promised that no one would try to put him back in a preservation field. He did not fully trust her, but he understood that fighting every alien on the ship would eventually get him killed. If talking could get him home, he would try talking first. They gave him a room. It was small, and the furniture was shaped wrong for a human body, but it was warm and private. They gave him more cloth to wrap around himself, and eventually they made him something that looked almost like real clothing. It did not fit well, but it covered him, and that was enough. They also gave him food. Real food this time, made from plants and proteins that his body could actually use. Valfani explained that their databases had information about human biology from their centuries of listening to Earth signals. They knew what he needed to survive. This made Marcus uncomfortable. How much did they know about humanity? How long had they been watching? The translation device they gave him helped with communication. It was a small thing that attached behind his ear and turned the alien sounds into words he could understand. It was not perfect. Sometimes words came out strange or in the wrong order. But it was better than not understanding at all. Marcus spent his first week learning about the Valkyrie. They were old. Their civilization had existed for more than 50,000 years. They had once been explorers, spreading across the galaxy and meeting hundreds of other species. But over time, they had noticed something terrible. Intelligent species kept dying. Wars, plagues, asteroid impacts, self-destruction. One by one, the civilizations they had known were disappearing. So the Valkyrie had given themselves a mission. They would collect specimens from every intelligent species they could find. They would preserve them, keep them safe, so that even if a species destroyed itself, some part of it would survive. "We are archivists," Valfani explained one evening as they sat together in her quarters. "Keepers of memory. We have samples from over 16,000 species, many of which no longer exist anywhere else in the galaxy." "You collect people like insects," Marcus said. He tried to keep the anger out of his voice, but it was hard. "We collect them like treasures," Valfani corrected. "Every specimen is precious. Every species is unique. We have devoted our civilization to making sure that life survives, even when the universe tries to destroy it. But you never asked them. You never asked any of them if they wanted to be collected." Valfani was quiet for a long moment. Her old eyes looked at something far away, something only she could see. "We did not think we needed to ask," she said finally. "Most of the species we collect are not capable of understanding the question. They do not have language or technology or civilization. They are primitive, like humans were. Like humans were. 12,000 years ago." Marcus leaned forward. This was the question that had been burning in his mind since Valfani first told him how long ago they had visited Earth. "Why did you think we were primitive?" "We had language. We had tools. We had art and music and stories. We were not animals." Valfani made a gesture that the translator told him meant sadness. "The survey team that visited your world was young and careless. They saw your people living in caves, wearing animal skins, hunting with spears. They compared you to themselves and found you lacking. They did not look deeper. They did not see what you could become, so they wrote us off. Yes, they classified your species as having limited evolutionary potential. They predicted you would remain at the same level of development for millions of years or go extinct. They collected a few specimens and moved on." Marcus thought about this. 12,000 years ago, his ancestors had been struggling to survive in a world of ice and giant predators. They had not even invented farming yet. They had no metals, no writing, no cities. And now, 12,000 years later, humans flew between the stars. "You made a mistake," Marcus said. "Yes, the greatest mistake in our history." "Perhaps." Valfani turned her old eyes toward him. "No species has ever evolved as quickly as yours. In cosmic terms, 12,000 years is nothing. It is the blink of an eye. Your species went from stone tools to faster than light travel in a time so short that our records did not even flag it for review." "We are not good at staying still," Marcus said. A small smile crossed his face. "We get bored easily. It is more than that." Valfani stood up and walked to a window that showed the stars outside. "We have studied your world's signals for centuries. Your history, your stories, your wars. Do you know what we learned?" Marcus shook his head. "Your species should have died many times. Ice ages, plagues, wars that could have destroyed everything. Moments when your entire civilization stood at the edge of extinction. She turned back to face him. But you never fell. Every time the universe tried to kill you, you fought back. You survived. You adapted. You grew stronger. That is what humans do, Marcus said. We do not give up. No, you do not. And that terrifies us. Marcus blinked. You are afraid of us? Not afraid exactly, but concerned. The Valkyrie have seen many species rise and fall. The ones that rise fastest often fall hardest. They burn bright and then burn out. They destroy themselves or each other. You think we will destroy ourselves? Valthani was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. Your species is unpredictable, violent and peaceful, creative and destructive, selfish and generous. You contain contradictions that should not be able to exist together. And yet they do. She walked back to her seat and lowered herself down slowly. Her whole body moved with care, each movement planned and controlled. I have lived for 300 years, she said. I have met representatives from dozens of species. But I have never met anyone like you, Marcus Chen. You woke from a sleep that should have lasted forever. You escaped the ship you did not understand. You fought your way to my command center and held a weapon to my throat. And now you sit with me and talk as if we are old friends. Marcus shrugged. You stopped trying to kill me. That helps. Valthani made the sound that Marcus was learning to recognize as laughter. Yes, it does. She leaned forward. I would like to make you an offer, Marcus Chun. What kind of offer? Stay with us. Not as a specimen, but as a guest. Learn about us. Teach us about your people. Help us understand what humanity has become, so that we can update our records and correct the mistake our ancestors made. Marcus considered this. Part of him wanted to refuse, to demand that they take him back to human space immediately. But another part of him saw an opportunity. If he stayed, he could learn about the galaxy. He could learn about the other species out there. He could learn things that would help humanity when they finally met the Valkyrie as equals. How long? He asked. As long as you wish. And when you want to go home, we will take you there ourselves. Marcus looked at the old alien, this being who had lived 3 times longer than any human ever had. He thought about everything she had told him, everything he had learned. Then he nodded. Deal. 3 years passed on the Valkyrie ship. Marcus learned their language without the translator. He learned their history, their customs, their way of seeing the universe. He walked through their specimen chambers and met creatures from 100 different worlds, some frozen in preservation and some awake and living as guests like himself. He studied their technology and taught them about human engineering. He shared human music and stories and art, and in return, they showed him the collected treasures of a galaxy full of life. He also became something he never expected to become. He became an ambassador. Word of the human who had escaped the preservation fields spread through the Valkyrie network. Other ships came to meet him. Representatives from their government traveled great distances just to talk with the strange bipedal creature who had done the impossible. Marcus found himself at the center of a conversation that would change everything. Your species must be told, Valthani said one day. They must know that they are not alone in the universe. They must know about us and about the other civilizations that exist among the stars. They will be afraid, Marcus said. They will want to fight, perhaps at first. But your people are also curious. They will want to learn, to explore, to understand. This is what makes you dangerous, but also what makes you valuable. Valuable? Valthani's old eyes looked at him with something that might have been fondness. The galaxy is old, Marcus. Many civilizations have risen and fallen. Most of the intelligent species that exist today are like us. tired, careful, afraid of change. We preserve what exists. We protect what we have. We do not grow anymore. She paused. But your species is young. You still have fire in you. You still believe that tomorrow can be better than today. The galaxy needs that. The galaxy needs you. Marcus thought about this for a long time. He thought about Earth, about his home, about the colonists who were probably wondering what had happened to him. He thought about the future that waited for humanity among the stars. "I want to go home," he said finally. "But I want you to come with me. I want you to meet my people. I want to show them that aliens are not monsters to be feared. What if they attack us? They might. But they might also listen. They might also learn." Marcus smiled. "We are unpredictable, remember?" Valfani made her laughing sound. "Yes, you certainly are." The journey to human space took 6 months. The Valkyrie ship traveled in ways that human technology could not match, folding space in ways that Marcus did not fully understand even after 3 years of study. But eventually, familiar stars appeared on the screens. Eventually, Marcus saw the yellow sun of Earth shining in the distance. Human ships met them at the edge of the solar system. Warships with weapons pointed at the alien vessel. Voices on the radio demanding to know who they were and what they wanted. Marcus answered them. "This is Commander Marcus Chung of the UNSC Colonial Fleet. I was taken from the transport ship Meridian 3 years ago. I am returning home with representatives of an alien civilization called the Valkyrie. They come in peace. They have a lot to tell us." There was silence on the radio for a long moment. Then the voice came back, confused and amazed. "Commander Chun, we thought you were dead. Your ship was found destroyed. There were no survivors. I survived. It is a long story. May we land?" More silence. Then, permission granted. "Welcome home, Commander." The landing was broadcast to every screen on Earth. Billions of people watched as the strange alien ship descended through the atmosphere and came to rest in the middle of a field that had been cleared for the occasion. They watched as the doors opened and Marcus Chun walked down the ramp, followed by the tall crystal figure of Shipmaster Valfani. The press conference that followed lasted for hours. Reporters asked questions about the Valkyrie, about their technology, about their history. Politicians demanded to know if they were a threat. Scientists wanted to know about their biology, their physics, their mathematics. But the question that Marcus remembered most came from a little girl who had somehow gotten into the press area. She could not have been more than 8 years old, with big curious eyes and a voice that carried through the chaos. "Why did they take you?" she asked. "Were you scared?" Marcus knelt down so he was at her level. The cameras captured every moment. "Yes, I was scared," he said honestly. "I woke up naked and cold on a strange ship with aliens all around me. I did not know where I was or what was happening. It was the most scared I have ever been." "But you were not hurt?" "They did not hurt you? They made a mistake. They thought humans were like animals because they visited Earth a long time ago when we were still living in caves. They did not know we had changed. But when they learned the truth, they treated me as a guest. They taught me things and learned from me. They became my friends." The little girl nodded seriously. "My mom says aliens are scary. She says we should fight them." Marcus glanced at Valfani, who stood nearby watching the exchange with her ancient eyes. "Some aliens might be scary," Marcus said. "The universe is a big place, and there are many different kinds of beings out there. But the Valkyrie are not scary. They are old and wise and tired, and they have been waiting for someone like us for a very long time. Like us? Someone young. Someone who still believes the future can be amazing. Someone who will not give up, no matter what." The little girl smiled. "I never give up. When I fall off my bike, I get back on. Marcus laughed. That is exactly what I mean. That is what makes humans special. That is what we can teach the galaxy. He stood up and faced the cameras. The Velkari have a question for humanity, he said. They want to know what message we want to send to the other species of the galaxy. They want to know how we want to introduce ourselves. He looked at Velthani, who nodded. I thought about this for a long time. I thought about everything that happened to me. I thought about waking up cold and alone and afraid, and fighting my way through an alien ship with nothing but my own will to keep me going. He paused. Tell them this. Humans wake up fast. And we do not stay down. No matter what the universe throws at us, no matter how impossible the odds, we get back up. We keep fighting. We keep hoping. We never stop. Marcus looked at the sky, at the stars that were hidden by the daylight but were still there, waiting. Tell them that humanity is coming. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as friends, as partners, as fellow travelers on the road through the stars. Tell them we have a lot to learn and a lot to teach. Tell them we are young and foolish and sometimes dangerous. He smiled. But also tell them we are brave. Tell them we are curious. Tell them we will cross any distance, solve any problem, overcome any obstacle to find our place in the galaxy. He looked back at the cameras, at the billions of people watching. Tell them we are human. And that means something. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then the applause started. It grew and grew until it filled the field. Until it seemed to shake the very ground. Marcus stood beside Velthani and watched as humanity took its first true step toward the stars. They were ready. They had always been ready. They just needed someone to show them the way.